All right, so I muted everybody. What I'd like to do, start off with a basic catch up in terms of what's been happening from my perspective. And I'm going to ask if Bob and Gary can share some information so that we can help push out the correct info so that everybody is working from the same sheet of music. So as mayor for the city, a lot of the information that's coming out, I've been following what's happening at the state, at the federal level, and over the last couple of days, there's continuing changes. So when this all first happened, there was a lot of things that we had to adjust to very quickly. And then it was almost a hurry up and wait, where there were not a lot of things happening, but keeping tabs and monitoring. So as the governor has announced, there are 4 regions that are cleared to open with phase 1 tomorrow. Central New York, of which we are part, was not one of those. And we are part with Onondaga, Madison, Cayuga, and Oswego counties. However, the trend this week has been that the one criteria we were short on, the number of tests that we are doing throughout our region, that we were on track for that. Now, the governor typically has an 11 a.m. press conference, and I've been informed that his presser has been moved back to 2 o'clock today, so right when we're in the middle of this. But the information or the hope is that we might hear good news about a potential phase 1 reopening for Central New York, less than 24 hours in advance. So, to help everybody have the right information and make sure that we're doing this properly, there's been some conversations between electeds. Paul Hyder he's the chair of the county legislature. He's been having daily conference calls with other county executives and county chairs throughout our region. Madison County, I saw their press conference today. They talked about opening tomorrow. And there's resources that are out there. And the goal of the resources is to help business owners open up safely. So one of the first things is that the social distancing expectations are not planned to change. So wearing a mask in public, or if you're going into a store, if you cannot socially distance, is still accepted and promoted behavior. And I'll give you an example. Down here at City Hall has been open throughout all this, but we restricted access in terms of who can come onto the main floor. So we're protecting workers and protecting visitors. With this change, we are not anticipating making a change in terms of how we are structured. So we've been deemed an essential business. We made all sorts of changes in terms of staffing, who's in the office when, more to protect the employees and also the general public. But with this change, we see that we've found what we're doing. We're meeting the goals and the expectations of the public, and we'll continue to operate this way because it seems to be the safest for everybody. So we're going to keep going the way that we have. Gary or Bob, would you like to pick up and talk a little bit about, I think this is getting right to the meat of the conversation would be helpful. Rock, paper, scissors. I'll unmute Bob. Try and tell me. There we go.
Okay.
Okay, we're both there.
Go ahead, Bob.
So I think Gary and I are going to see we're on the same page with this, but last night at 9 o'clock, a little beyond, we got word from the state that they finally have provided guidance that they want to see essential businesses or those opening in phase 1. It provides information they want as part of your COVID operating plan. It also has a link to an online attestation that they would like every open business to be signing, saying that you understand and are going to follow the guidelines. So we have been pushing that out all day today and also making follow-up calls. So that piece of it's going very well. Everybody who's not part of phase 1 can still be working on their plans. And we've been sharing that although we don't have specific guidelines for plans beyond phase 1, if you look at the phase 1 guidelines, it'll give you some nice indications on what you're going to be needing to put into your plan. So I'll leave it at that, see what Gary wants to pitch in.
Yeah, that's a good summary. You know, we've all been drinking from a fire hose on this thing, both from the start when we were trying to direct the business community to appropriate resources that could help. You know, the whole SBA jumble between the EIDL loan and the PPP and other things that might be out there. So I guess we've moved over now. We're still counseling businesses on what might still be available. There is still PPP money out there, and they've broadened the scope of it somewhat. So agriculture is now an eligible sector to apply for help, and so that guidance is being revised on almost a daily basis. And I believe there's still tens of billions of dollars left in that fund. So Bob and I are both doing our best, and Karen here in my office to counsel businesses, those that have not gotten in on that, to do that, because this is going to be a phased reopening, as you all know. I think one of the more difficult things is in assessing what phase one means. And again, so it changes daily, but we know now, you know, that it's non-essential manufacturing, non-essential construction, which is basically all construction other than what you might have seen on Clinton Avenue and, you know, people working on a wastewater plant. You know, so construction is wide open again, retail, wholesale trade, and then the hunting, fishing, and boating sectors. So lots of people want to lump themselves into those 5 categories and are wondering, you know, do I fit, do I not fit? And if they know that they don't fit in phase one, the next question is, well, when will I be able to reopen? So we're spending our time, and Bob as well, in just trying to get good messaging out to those businesses that are eligible to open up as of today. And I believe that's why the governor's in Syracuse this afternoon. So I think we've been pretty confident that we'll be open. But getting out good information is key. We've actually been worried about the best way to communicate. You know, the chamber has a great membership, over 500 members, but that's only 40% of our businesses in the community. So beyond what Bob and his team can do, we've all got to do a good job of messaging to those who may not, you know, we think they might be hearing us, but may not be. You know, and the construction is the wild, wild west to me. It's not all Crown Homes and, you know, guys like Jim Rainers and folks who are maybe a little bigger and have bigger staffs. It's those guys driving around with signs on their trucks. It's the tree removal specialists, all sorts of folks that need to understand that while they're able to reopen, they still have to follow the social distancing guidelines, as the mayor just pointed out and as Bob mentioned. So I think a real key to all that has been, as Bob said, the release of some state guidance on the New York Forward website that can give the business community a good idea of what their plans should consist of. Every business is going to need to put some kind of a plan together, and probably should have it in their workplace, so that it's available. You know, it's inevitable that folks are going to complain about certain things. Business A isn't doing things the way they should be, and that's going to prompt some response from city code perhaps, or from the health department, from the sheriffs. Businesses need to be prepared to say, no, look, I'm following the plan. I've certified that I've done this plan. And then, in fact, they need to actually be performing the plan. They can't throw a fake at it, because, it's in their own best interest to do the best they can to safely, you know, protect their workers and their customers. All of that is rolled up into, I guess, my point in saying that we're doing our best to get all those messages out. As Bob said, the only guidance is on the website now is for that first phase. Again, this stuff changes daily. I don't anticipate that right now there will be much of a change in the 2-week intervals between the openings. The state's going to monitor, with the help of our health department, you know, how many cases we get, hospitalizations, all of that stuff. And so if we don't go sideways after phase one in the region, we'll see phase two, and that's professional services, offices, and all of that. And then after that, phase 3, after 2 weeks, and then 2 more weeks, we'll be hopefully into the rec sector. But that still puts us at best case at the beginning of June. So we've got a lot of work to do to get all these messages out, to get people tuned in, and this is just one thing. I think it's a good thing the mayor did this. The more people we can reach, the more we can appeal to folks to talk to their contacts and maybe get people guided in the right direction as we move through this nightmare.
Agreed. Bob, do you have information? I know that you've been talking with different groups, but do you have any information in terms of the website, the chamber website, that would be helpful for businesses or people if they're curious about what phase 1 looks like?
Yeah, so what we've done, if you go to the homepage of our website and we're at cortlandareachamber.com, you'll see a COVID page link right there. And so if you go to our COVID page, you're going to see multiple resources that you can turn to, including what came out last night will be there. There's also a button on that COVID page. If you're not a member but would like to be kept up to date on all the COVID updates, click there. You can put your information in. No requirement on your part except the willingness to receive the emails on COVID. And our attitude is we're going to get through this together. We're helping every local business, regardless if they're a member or not. And I know you've got Gary here doing the same. In fact, our email today said, for more questions, reach out to either one of us. It's going to be fine. We're going to work in conjunction, of course, through this. We have 3 people operating remotely right now, and we will respond to everybody before we go to sleep at night. So that's your answer. You'll hear from us the same day.
I guess I would add too that I do think that for those who don't have the web address or haven't looked at it, it's forward.ny.gov, and it's a pretty good resource. The other thing that Bob and I have talked about is, figuring out how to get out best practices to businesses. So as you might imagine, the restaurant sector, when it's their turn, that's a very broad arena, I guess. But there is best practice out there from across the country, places that are reopening. We want to try and make those resources available to people as well, see what other folks are doing and how they're making it work. We're going to try to do it for all of the sectors. As I've said a few times, I even have some guidance on how to reopen tattoo parlors. So apparently there's a method. But that's the sort of thing we need to get out to folks. And again, I think the most important message is that people need to take it seriously and really, really perform the plan, because we don't want to go backwards.
Hey, Mayor.
I heard a voice.
Mayor.
Bruce Teitler, Alderman.
I just wanted to ask Bob and Gary, thanks, first of all, for all your information. Gary, you said you just gave us a website address, but I couldn't quite catch it. Is it on the BDC IDA page? Will I find it there?
Hi, Bruce. No, it's this. No, I think Bob's going to stand that link up on his page, and I will as well. But for right now, you can go to forward.ny.gov.
It's on the chat right now.
Gary, Chris Major just put it on the chat.
Okay, great.
Okay, forward.ny.gov. Okay, and that'll tell me like those 5 categories you were talking about and information like that, Gary.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Super.
Yeah.
All right.
So there are several resources, and as I stated at the start, things happened and there were changes, and now things are changing not just on a day-to-day, but sometimes almost on an hourly basis. So these websites will be very helpful, I think, for people to stay up to date. So the Chamber, Bob, thank you for doing what you're doing, because you're giving one-stop shopping in a lot of cases. In terms of hearing what the state has, forward.ny.gov, that's what the state's putting forward to try to make sure people are informed. And the county, I just had a conversation with Paul Hyder, the chair. Gosh, it was probably 10 minutes before we started this, and they are updating. They're trying to put together a document that will really streamline and put in one place all the information that business owners need to try to make sure that you're meeting the expectations. And it can be confusing, and there possibly and probably will be changes as this goes forward. But for people to have the confidence that it's safe to go, it's safe to shop, or to participate, whatever the activity is, we want to make sure that we can lend that sense of, okay, things are being done appropriately. Because we can open, businesses can open, but if people don't start going, spending, and everybody, not back to normal, but back to some of our normal habits, well, we're not really moving forward. So it's going to be incumbent on everybody to play their part. So businesses have to open appropriately, and there's a lot of information about protecting workers in addition to protecting customers. Employees have to do their part, and obviously everybody that walks through the door, if you are going places, needs to do their part. And part of that is saying, hey, what can we do differently? So again, City Hall, we're open, but we are dealing mostly remotely. Every now and then we're passing things through the door, but a lot of the paperwork that needs to get dropped off, if it's not electronic, then we've got a drop box out front. And we're going to continue to do that because we think that's a good way for us to help control the rate of infection. Lisa Herschel, is that a hand up?
It is, Brian. I'm just wondering where we are with PPE and if people have PPE needs and how that's being addressed, especially for the retail establishments.
That's a great question.
Brian,
Dr. Gary.
I did hear today that the Office of Emergency Management has secured 9,000 masks that will be available. So for those who need it, I think that's the place to contact is the Office of Emergency Management at the county.
So Office of Emergency Management at the county, don't have a phone number right now, but we'll see if we can't track one down.
Thanks, Gary.
Brian?
Yes, that's Richard Stock.
Yes, I'm sorry my picture doesn't show up. I'd love everybody to see it, but I don't know why it's not. Anyway, we're getting a lot of feedback at the legislators and where we're having some problems with some of the stores letting people in without masks and other people complaining. I have suggested that there's a place called Lindstar that I actually ordered shields for that maybe the stores could get in and hand out to people that don't want to wear the mask for some health reasons or something. So I think we ought to make it very clear that people should enter with a mask because of the distancing I'm hearing about.
Very good. So we will continue to advertise and promote. We should have everybody wearing masks, and what you're talking about, plastic protective barriers, that's something that every business should be looking into as well. And of course, along with periodic, regular cleaning.
Mayor Tobin, Sheffield, Cortland Standard. I have a quick question.
Noah.
Hi, we've been doing a lot of unemployment stories, and we're hearing that a lot of people are actually making more on unemployment currently, with the additional $600 a month. So is there a worry that we're not going to get the workforce back once businesses start opening up, and how do we deal with that?
There's a lot of concerns in terms of people coming back to work, and I think the biggest concern, I hear what you're saying in terms of compensation, but I think the biggest concern is safety. So we all need to make sure we're doing our part so that it is as safe as possible. And then businesses need to work with their employees, because another concern that's really not being discussed is what's going to happen with childcare. So initially, the governor talked about tying childcare and businesses opening together. And as we all know, schools are closed all the way through the end of the school year. So if you're a parent, if you've got young children, what are you going to do with your kids if you have to go back to work? There's going to be some challenges that have to be addressed either by the region or maybe just within our county. And right now, some of these questions are still hanging out there. But what I'd like to do, we're doing this 1:30 today. I'd like to schedule a meeting for tomorrow before we hang up and continue to have the discussion to make sure that we're all informed. And as questions come forward, if I don't have the answer immediately, I want to be able to say, well, we're going to work on that and figure out what the answer might be. And I'll give you another example. We're talking about restaurants being able to open. That's not phase 1 or 2, but if you're getting into places, and we're talking places that have small seating capacity, what can the city do to help facilitate a larger seating capacity in terms of outside? So I want to have an open ear, and if business owners are running into obstacles, let's try to help you work through it. And Chris Medoff, thank you for posting Office of Emergency Management phone number up there. So in the group chat.
I guess one thing I would add to the employment concern, it's a real thing. I guess one positive development was the amendment to the PPP program that no longer would penalize a participant for not being able to restore their workforce to 100% pre-pandemic. Because obviously people being offered their jobs back are denying it because they're making more money not coming back to work. That's no fault of the employer, but thankfully the SBA recognized that and fixed that loophole. But I believe that benefit runs through July 31st. Who knows if it'll be extended? It's going to be a problem in the recovery, if I could editorialize.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Open for questions. Anybody else?
Mayor? Hey, Mayor?
Bruce?
Yeah, I don't have a question so much as I think Gary spoke to this earlier, and he just spoke to it again. I think what's important for all of us, I think we definitely need to spend, we can't say it enough, wear a mask, social distance, every public service announcement we can probably get out there to get the message there. But I also think, since this has never been done before, I think we all need to be reminded of that and be a little patient, and that we are going to run into some bumps and some problems we haven't anticipated, and everybody just has to say, okay, well, like you said, Mayor, we'll figure it out, because there are going to be some things we haven't run into. Obviously, this is our I like to say it's not my first rodeo, but this is my first rodeo dealing with this kind of stuff. So I just want to throw that out there and make sure part of our message is, look, folks, we're doing the best we can. Let's be patient. We'll get this solved. But the people have to do their part. If they don't do their part, the governor's going to come back on and shut things down again. So I think we need to have several messages out there. That's it.
Bruce, that's a really good point, and I wanted to ask a couple things, Brian, if you don't mind. First of all, I do have some PPE. I have access to cloth masks with liners for nonprofits who need them for their staff, so we're handing them out to YWCA, CAPCO, Catholic Charities, and to the Child Development Council. So if anybody else needs cloth masks that can be laundered, let me know. I can get them to you. I also have about 1,000 KN95s that just arrived from China. I made them available first to the county and the hospital, and if there are any left, anyone who wants to buy them at cost is welcome to do that. But Brian, I am wondering if the governor or if anyone else at the state level has indicated what would be a circuit breaker in terms of increased cases causing us to have to re-implement closing. Have you heard anything like that?
Yeah, so for anybody who may be unaware, what the governor is expecting, if cases were to significantly rise, going over the 1.1 rate of infection, more people being infected at a rate of 1.2 or higher, I think it still is 1.2 last time we discussed it, that there should be what he's called a circuit breaker to ramp down what's happening to keep things from getting out of hand. Not sure at this point. I've not heard what the potential circuit breaker would be. I think a lot of the focus has been being prepared for things to start on Friday, which, again, right around the corner. But I also think just because it's tomorrow, we don't have to go quickly. It's more important that we proceed smartly than quickly. So if a business owner isn't 100% sure that they're ready for tomorrow, give us a call, or I'll volunteer Gary or Bob, but give one of us a call. We'll try to help walk you through it. Now, the resources that are out there are pretty good, but I would encourage you, if you're not ready to open on Friday, push it to Monday. Just because phase one officially starts Friday doesn't mean that everybody has to go full bore who qualifies for phase one. And businesses that are in phase 2 or 3 will have the opportunity to learn from businesses that are opening in phase 1. So the hope is we'll be able to put out some good examples of plans that are functional, quick and easy, and appropriate. And then if you're in phase 2 or phase 3, that you'll be able to take that and not have to reinvent the wheel. But yeah, the question of the circuit breaker, that's something that will probably come up in the next day or so. And I'm willing to stay and answer questions. I see that it is 2 o'clock though. I was expecting the governor to speak this morning. I apologize. I was hoping that we'd learn more because this is changing minute by minute. Anybody that wants to continue to talk, we can chat now. You're also more than welcome to reach out to me. As I said, anybody that's a business owner, if you're in the city and you're going to have some obstacles, give me a call and let's see if we can't figure out how to make it successful. And Sudal Hall, thank you. There's a comment in the chat. Business owners need a plan for short-term closures due to unexpected closure. Present special concerns for childcare, and that would also impact employees' ability to work. Yeah. So one of the first things that we did, thank you, Bob. One of the first things that we did initially with City Hall, we talked to our employees and said, okay, what are your circumstances? How can we help you work around? So throughout the city, we only had a couple of people that needed assistance in terms of childcare. And part of that was us being willing to be flexible, because some parents at home, we have some people now that are coming in after 4 o'clock because their spouse can watch the kid up until 4. And that also helped us reduce the number of people in the office at any one point, which is also a added bonus. But the question about childcare, the more that people are talking to their employees and trying to work with them, better chance of us all being successful.
Mayor, if I could make just one final point. One of the things that I've been a little bit, not worried about, but I think we should all be tuned into is the fact that enforcement for this has really been handed off to the localities. So the governor's in Albany setting thresholds and guidelines and handed off reopening to the regions, but it's up to the counties individually in a more granular way to really take responsibility for how these things are rolling out. And I'm hopeful that business leaders and our elected representatives and our code guys and our law enforcement folks take an attitude that, we want to help people out, not hit them over the head with a hammer. To Brian's point earlier, we have to be a resource for people. No one's ever been down this road. I just hope everybody takes the attitude that, hey, maybe you're not doing that the right way. Here's some guidance. Let's not. I think we all have to be a strong team in this to get through it.
Absolutely, and I think it's worth noting that some of the conversations with the county, we had a discussion yesterday. Bob and Gary were involved, county representation, and also Hal McCabe from Village of Homer, and Bill McGovern from Village of Marathon, myself, and part of the discussion is being consistent. So not just, hey, we're doing one thing in Homer, but something different in the city. And on this call, there is additional city representation. We have a couple of aldermen, a couple other city staff as well. And we want to make sure that we're holding everybody accountable to the right level, but not in an onerous way. This is about being safe first and foremost. but I think everybody recognizes that some of the things that have been on pause need to get going in order for communities to be successful. And I can say, you know, the city, our budget, we're feeling the pinch, same as everybody else. We can't just say, oh, well, we're going to raise taxes. We've raised enough from taxes. We've already made cuts in terms of part of our budget for this year. We've furloughed people. And right now, I was asked yesterday what our plans are because the numbers for sales tax did not come in. Well, we were expecting potentially a 20% drop. And last month, it was a 25%. But we're going to hold fast. We've got a plan, and we're going to stick with our plan for the next couple of months. So here's what I'll do. The governor is on. When he is done talking, I will log back on if anybody wants to ask questions. And tomorrow, same Zoom number, but if anybody wants to jump back on tomorrow and talk further, because things are changing so rapidly, maybe we won't have anything to discuss, but I will schedule Zoom call with the same access code for tomorrow at 1:30.
Thank you, Brian, very much for your leadership. Greatly appreciated.
Just trying to amplify the messages that are coming out, and I'll pass along thanks. Gary and Bob have been working very hard, very diligently on behalf of everybody, and appreciate everybody joining us today.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
Gary and Bob, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. I do have a suggestion on something that came up with my particular business. We were talking about family care and things like that. I have one employee that's going to be coming back whose wife is pregnant and they have 3 kids home on school. All right, how do you navigate that? And I did check on if anybody hasn't used the family leave thing going on, check with your insurance company. They have forms that they can email out to you and have it ready. You know, because a lot of those situations, I can't imagine that I'm not that special. That I have the one employee that has a pregnant wife and 3 kids at home, and then he's getting ready to come back to work. And it's one of those things. Okay, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Kind of like we're going to keep our airlocks for at least another month, where the pickups and deliveries are still being separated, and you know, it's just one of those things. Like he was saying, being responsible. But you know, it was funny. My employee doesn't think about that. But I'm like, yeah, this is going to be a problem. And I mean, I don't have my crystal ball. It's back ordered on Amazon because of RoHS compliance, but but I was like, all right, I got to at least be prepared for if that happens. But my insurance broker, I won't mention any names because name dropping is wrong, but they probably can help you make sure you're first of all covered, and second of all that you have forms if it becomes an issue. It was like a couple of phone calls and I was done. So that was my 2 cents.
Thank you, everybody.
Pleasure, Paula. Yeah, and part of the questions, the opportunities for me to listen, also helps me advocate. So ideas and whatever it might be, there's things that we can do locally, but there's probably things that we need to advocate for with the region and potentially to the state and beyond. So when people have ideas, please bring them forward.
Okay, thanks, Mayor. I'm signing off. Take care, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Very good. I'm probably going to stay and just watch the governor, and that way don't have to close and reopen.
Brian, we'll talk later.
Yeah, that's a threat.
Okay.
I'll see you, John.